So, I didn't know.
This is
So
what
this
I
is the
think-
address of his house, and
This
he's
is
contesting the assessment of the.
This is
golf
here.
course.
Right, I was looking at this.
No, that's,
That's
See, this is
on
right
the
next to the
web-
golf
That's
course.
his too.
oh, yeah, no, that's,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
one.
The golf
Property
course.
So
address, so it's, he's,
The land?
yeah, for the golf course is what he's.
No, here's the
Yeah,
What's on the
land,
agenda?
exactly.
and here's this.
Okay.
The
Okay.
golf course is on,
Because
like,
that's here.
the,
This is
yeah.
for the tax records that I found online. Wait a minute, here.
I would,
Yeah,
Oh,
you're
here,
correct.
here. See, this is.
Let's
this
make
is-
just make a note of it when we get to that
Square
agenda
footage.
item. That because the tax team is
5475.
correct.
His home,
It's LSP.
Right.
T
And it's down as 2 acres here.
002.
what is it down here is acreage here?
But you're right. This is his home
Land.
address.
Maybe it's part
What
of
is
the-
on the?
Well, you know why it's
Instructions.
30
No, it's gonna-
hours. That's maybe why.
it has the correct address of the, that's the address of the property.
You're right. Okay, I think I put that
Land
his
value,
address
that's why.
here.
And that's adjacent to the golf
Yeah,
course, and that's maybe, could be part of the reason for the
That's maybe
confusion.
why.
Correct. Well,
But
it
here
it
it
just
says
should have been listed that, but
33,000.
I can
This
make a
is the
note of it
thing
when we
in,
get to that portion of
this
the agenda
is-
too.
Alright.
So.
This is a different golf course. This is in Brookfield.
Oh, then why do we have this?
Hey, Joe.
We have Silver Spring. Why do we have this?
1 minute.
Just to show different ones.
Yeah,
okay,
but
all right.
he doesn't own the golf course. Is that a
Sorry,
separate
have a
thing?
good night. I'm glad you're not here.
Well, then why does this show 2 acres? That's the question that I've got.
Because
Oh, I
this
heard
is
Linda
his
say there's
house.
something else.
This is
Okay,
not the golf
all right.
course.
Oh, he's.
This goes until
he's
8.
on the golf course. Oh, I got you.
That's why you have
Okay.
all these golf courses.
That's
All
why,
right.
okay.
Talk to you later. Bye.
For other communities, sometimes they don't even put who's objecting necessarily on the agenda.
I think many years we haven't had it on,
Yeah.
so.
So I don't think that's a big deal, but I'm gonna turn his microphone on, and then if you're ready, we'll get started.
Sure.
I think I dropped my phone either in the car or outside in the rain.
Oh, geez.
We'll wait for you.
What did you drop?
My phone.
You didn't sit going in, did you?
I didn't, but I wasn't looking down, so.
We're just running.
Kind of.
Super, thanks.
Whoops, I'm
I
sorry.
just get in everybody's way, that's kind of weird. Now, last year, did Gina just kind of leave you guys after the hearings to review the board, or did she just stay here the whole time?
Who?
Gina?
I think she was here the whole time.
She was here the whole time, and there was one hearing that took a significant portion
I
of
read
the
the
2
minutes,
hours.
yeah, it's pretty long minutes, so. Okay.
Yeah. You trying to get out of here before 8?
No, I have to stay here the whole week anyways. I'll probably sit in here, but
Oh, you mean?
Usually-
Oh, yeah. She might have gone in the other room. I mean,
Oh, okay.
and done something. That's. I mean,
I wasn't sure.
yeah. No, if you got something to do, I mean,
I can do it from here too, so.
we can talk with Mike. That's fine.
I have to have the attorney sign a few things, so.
Find it?
Yes,
Was it in the car?
yes.
Good.
Well, in
Good.
my pocket in
Oh,
between.
good. Oh, good.
That's why I didn't see it right away. Had to dig it out. Okay. Put the volume down on your phone.
I turned it off.
Oh, did
I
you?
mean, I turned the volume down.
Okay, with what?
Okay.
I turned it off, the volume off.
Okay. I'll call the 2019 Board of Review meeting to order. It is 6:02. 6:03. Roll call. Supervisors Becky Plotecker,
Here.
Linda Beal,
Here,
Tadia Gamino,
Here.
and alternate member Matt Gerke.
Here.
Also present Assessor Mike Rhoda and Clerk Dan Green. Statement of public notice. The notice of Board of Review was posted and sent to the paper April 17th. Meeting the statutory deadline, public notices are posted at the Town Hall, the Fire Station, the DPW building, and on the town's website in accordance with the state statutes. Discussion and necessary action to approve the June 15th, 2018 Board of Review minutes. Look for a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
Okay, motion seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I've abstained because I wasn't here.
Motion passes 3-0 with Supervisor Gamino abstaining. Next item, select the chairperson and vice chairperson. For a
Well, I'll
motion.
nominate Matt Gerke to be the chairperson.
I second.
I third.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And then the motion for the vice chairperson.
Becky was served in that, or the, I would nominate Becky.
I second.
Thanks.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right. Verify the members have met statutory training requirements. Supervisors Plotecker, Gamino, and Beal still have their meet the training requirements as of June 12, 2019.
If those expire before the next one, I'll be happy to, or I won't be happy, but I will take the training next year.
Very good. Receive the 2019 assessment roll from the assessor.
Assessment roll and the assessment affidavit.
Good. All right. So review the 2019 assessment roll and perform statutory duties. All statutory duties have been performed. And review of notices of intent to file objection. We did receive actually 2 objections. One was withdrawn, so tonight there is only 1 objection, which was received April 29th, 2019, and that is from Mr. John Spitz, who is here tonight. And that will be, that hearing will be later on the agenda tonight. So I guess we can move into the hearing portion.
All right.
Do you wanna go ahead?
Sure. So under item number 10, John, you're up. If you want to take a seat in the comfortable chair. This is for the property. It's correctly on the agenda for Lisbon tax key number LSBT 0258999002. John lives at the address shown at Topo Hill Drive. The property being appealed, objected here is, as stated on the objection form, West 270 North 6166 Moraine Drive in Lisbon. So, John, have you been in front of a board of review before?
Not to the best of my memory.
All right, so I'm just going to give you kind of an overview, and then we'll start. Again, we're talking about the 2019 assessment tonight, which is the value of the property as of January 1st, 2019. So we're talking about the market and your property as of that specific date. The state of Wisconsin, not the town of Lisbon, has set up the process with it, puts the burden of proof entirely on the property owner. More specifically, the assessor is assumed to be correct. So it is the property owner must show that an error has been made in the assessment. Therefore, for you to be successful tonight, you have to establish and support your appeal by presenting factual information that supports your claim. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Furthermore, the state of Wisconsin has stressed that this board must consider available information in a hierarchy. Only if information is not available from one can we move on to the next. So more specifically, a recent arm's length sale of the property is the first thing we consider, and I know there hasn't been that. But then
Nor will there be.
Sure. Comparable sales is the next to be considered, and if there's not any comparable sales, we can move on to something else. So I think from the information here, we agree that there's comparable sales. So we're looking at that hierarchy. So you'll be sworn in a few seconds here. Dan will do that. Then we'll hear your testimony. I've got some notes here, but so you will testify, present your evidence first. Then the assessor will ask you questions. Then the board of review will, the four of us will ask you any questions. Then after you've testified, you didn't bring any witnesses. You're talking on behalf of yourself tonight. You didn't bring any experts. Are going to be showing up here shortly or anything like that?
No.
Okay. All right. Then the assessor will, Mike will state his case. You'll ask him questions. We'll ask him questions. We'll go through the process, and then we will close the hearing and debate ourselves. During that debate, we will not be able to ask either of you two any questions. So we'll be sure to ask those prior to that point in time.
Is that debate public or is that private?
Absolutely public. It has to be public by state law. So, and we'll do that. You're the only case, so we'll do that right after we close the testimony. That sound accurate? Anything else to add? All right,
Nope.
Dan, you want to swear in, I guess, Mike as well, right?
Yeah, I'll swear him in, and then when you give your testimony, I'll do you. So we still have a quorum. So if you can raise your right hand, and then do you swear that the testimony you are about to give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help me God.
I do.
Very good.
All right, so could you just start off by stating what your opinion of the assessment should be?
Well, just for the record, the assessor has the land value of $3,552,200, with improvements on the property of $693,700, for a total of $4,245,900. And the property is classified for assessment purposes as commercial. Just wanted to put that on the record. Thanks.
So I think you think in the form here you're advocating for a $1.7 million value. Is that what I see correctly here?
I answered the questions on the form. What I'm advocating for is what I understand is level, equal treatment under the law, and the evidence I provided shows that my assessment, I could own two golf courses for what I'm paying for mine in the local area. Beyond that, the bog, which if people are familiar with golf, is an Arnold Palmer course that we actually worked on the construction of it back at the same time we built our course. And that was sold from Terry Wakefield, the original owner, to John Hammis, the now owner, for $2.1 million, and it is currently assessed at $2.4 million and some odd change. I'm double that. The bog, get $126 for 18 holes in the cart. I got a beg for 60. It's my understanding that this hearing is germane to real estate values, not to income levels. The level that a golf course performs at is a multifaceted equation. If you've got good people and you manage it intensively and you pay attention to business, yes, you can succeed in the private sector on a golf course. You can also take that same investment, drive it right in the ground in a matter of 6 months by siphoning off any and all proceeds, and you can run it in a poor fashion. Now, when I was asked by Mike to furnish profit and loss statements for that business, which that's what it is, it's a business. I said to him, Mike, I don't believe that how I run that business and the success I've had, if there is that success, is germane to the real estate. It's more, the success of it is more attuned to the people that are on site and the job they do. And it's my understanding that this board has got to look at things from a real estate perspective. This is not an apartment building. It isn't a commodity that can be dealt with like an apartment building across the board. The comparables that I show here show me being double the assessment of a much higher caliber golf course than what I have there. And you can ask any golfer what the level is of that piece of real estate. Now, whether a person makes a profit or not on his business venture, I don't believe is tied to the real estate. You can't do the multiplier like you do for an apartment. It just isn't so. I don't see how the two are tied, and I'm not willing to, as a private entrepreneur, have my personal financial information spread far and wide. And people say, oh, we won't. Okay, I think that's my business if I make a profit or a loss over there, and I think the board's business is to look at equal justice under law and make sure that everybody has a crack at being treated equal as far as their real estate value goes. Now, I don't know why that particular piece of real estate is the dirt itself, the land, is many times more than the other ones, other golf courses here locally. As far as recent sales go, I had the misfortune of being foolish enough to purchase a golf course in New Berlin, where I grew up 7 years ago. Bought it. City of New Berlin had it assessed, and still does for that matter, at the better part of $900,000. The fellow that bought it had to go to the bank and get an assessment for his loan from the SBA. They come back with $370,000 for 78 acres, 4,200 square foot clubhouse, and a maintenance building. 370, that's almost, I mean, not quite a third, probably closer to 40% of their New Berlin's fair market value. That's the most recent sale. That's in the same metropolitan area as we exist in. I'm not taking a sample of a course that's up in Timbuktu that gets 13 rounds a year and the guy took a beating on it. That's a real sale here in the metro area. And it's a recent sale. It occurred, I think we closed April 15th on the SBA loan. So I look at this and I think, okay, what's wrong with this picture here? I mean, I'm not talking about $100 difference here. This is double. So my focus is on the real estate proper. And how I run that business, I can easily turn on the apathy button or push it and just let her spin into the ground. I have the same people there that started with me, and I treat them right, and those people treat the customer right, and that's primarily the reason that there's success over there. What that success has to do with the real estate value of that, I don't know. I can't figure it out. I already pay my federal taxes on it as an LLC. I pay state taxes. I don't take a dime out of it cash-wise. No, nothing goes out the back door into Uncle John's wallet. It's all right across the table, because I have since day one, for the better part of 25 years, said that if I'm stealing from the place, what's to keep the people working there, to keep them, so I maintain that, and it's been that way since day one, so if I'm profitable, and when I pay my taxes on it, that's the mantra we've been living under since day one.
John, we've got 2 hours. We were not in a hurry. I mean, so you're gonna have as much time as you want. But I just want to kind of maybe help you out just a little bit. And you've got a great property over there. One of the properties that we're happiest to have in Lisbon. Great, and Mike and Jim do great jobs. But what we're looking for here is, when you're presenting your, and we talked about the hierarchy. So if there are comparable sales, this board is looking to those sales. And we're not going to be asking for income information if you're claiming that there are comparable sales, and if Mike is saying the same thing, that there are truly comparable sales. So we're not going to beat you up on that by any means.
How long ago do you view comparables? Like the bog sold 3 years ago for 2-1.
Different people would look at it at recent being different for different property types.
Okay.
You can ask Mike that, but I think for specialized properties like this, I have my personal opinion. Yeah, 3 years would be reasonable, but that's for the board and other professionals to decide.
It takes a better part of a year, if you're lucky, to sell a golf course.
So when you're presenting your case on these comparable sales, so Dan, this spreadsheet that we have in front of us tonight, this came from John?
Yeah, that was part of what he's.
Okay, so sometimes
There's a letter there also, Matt, that explains the bog situation, if you want another comparable.
do you want to, I mean, when you're presenting your case, do you want to walk through, because we didn't have this information prior to today. At least I did not. Did everyone else? No?
I thought I got it in a timely fashion.
So, I mean, we've got some time here. So, we have these comparables, but we don't have a lot of details other than what's in the spreadsheet. You have the land value, the improved value, the estimated fair market value of these comparable properties. These aren't the sale prices on the spreadsheet or the sale dates.
No,
That's in your narrative.
Those listed properties there compare fair market.
Assessment.
That's off of the tax bill.
Okay, so we're looking for compare. I'm gonna back off here and let you present your case, but I'm just trying to help you out by if we can focus on the comparable sales.
Okay, well, this is how I got to attending this meeting is, hey, what's the real story here? Okay, and so then I called the town and they said, well, we'll email you over this form here, you can make this out and then you can get on the agenda. So I did that and I said, hey, Sandy, the office manager, I said, let's get some information on the immediate area here of what the assessments are and such, so we can see if we're being evaluated what we feel is fair. So we do that and we look at this and then after looking at those numbers, I called John Hammis's assistant up there that his son actually runs the course up there at the blog. I said, hey, what do you guys, what's the deal on the assessment here? We looked it up and it's, we're twice what you are. And he said, yeah, we bought the place for 2-1 and some odd change. And that's what we're currently assessed at and bought it about 3 years ago. Now, we were up there doing a little bit of grading after they bought it for the new owner, and I ran into John, and I kind of know him from working with him on different projects, John Hammis. And I said, gee, John, I think you got a real deal here. And I said, what are you paying? I said, I heard you was a little over 2. He said, yeah. I said, boy. I said, would you, is it, I kind of alluded that I would have bought it for that. Not that I'm walking around with an extra $2 million, but he said, well, it's not for sale for that. So he knows he got a deal but he bought it, paid fair market, or whatever the market would bear there, because Terry Wakefield, the original owner, had over $12 million. Our contract alone just for the earthwork was $1 million. Arnold Palmer's was over $1 million for design and promotion. He had the land, the permits, the whole deal, the whole smash, clubhouse, everything. He was over 12, sold it for a shade over $2 million. And it was on the market for 4 years. So that is the comparable there. Now, my own personal experience with this ill-fated purchase I made down in New Berlin is a matter of record. I mean, those are the numbers. I believe I furnished a closing statement. I can give you the appraisal, but it's this thick, but the windup is that the bank came back and I asked for another appraisal, they wouldn't give it, and it was $370. And $370 against I think it was $973 according to my letter there.
I'm sorry, $897. $897.
It was, the better part of $900.
Sure, right.
Okay. So that, that's the most recent sale in Waukesha, the greater Waukesha area. There's Western Lakes. I was called a month ago by the same guy. I managed to be a buffoon and purchase this other golf course. Thought I was foolish enough to buy another one. Western Lakes is for sale. They're asking 2-1, and there's some potential development land around it. Well, what they're asking and what they're getting is two different things. I don't think anybody's going to offer them over asking. So you tell me what you think, or why you think that this particular piece of property that I have has got such a much higher dirt value than the fellow across the street or up on Highway 164 or any of the courses that so named.
So Mike will get into his case. So, I mean, we don't have an opinion at this point. So the two comparable sales that you presented here are the property in New Berlin and the property in Saukville. Mm-hmm. And do you have any formal adjustments to those sales? Any discussion on the differences between the number of holes, the clubhouses, and appraisals of your property? Any other information that you can provide as part of your case? Again, we're not cutting you off, but I'm trying to help you in the right direction.
Okay, the bog speaks for itself. I mean,
I'm not sure that. I mean, I've never. I certainly. The knowledge and the understanding that the bog is a nice course is probably well known, but I don't know that any of us have ever golfed at the bog.
Okay, and obviously golfing is different from assessing the real estate value. If you go to golf there, typically you don't go to, let's see, brick and mortar, hardwood floors, so many square feet. Okay, your mind is on other things, but I will tell you this, that it is it's much better than any of the Legends courses. Its only knock is it's a little further out from the metropolitan area, is in Saukville, but it is USDA bulletproof as far as upper end. It competes with the Bull, it competes with Kohler, and no, it's not Aaron Hills, nothing's Aaron Hills. That guy just had money and he burned it. The bog was built top shelf, but it was built to make money, and apparently Terry Wakefield got tired of waiting around to see if it would make money and had other things to do. Nice fellow, but I don't know if he bid, real nice guy, but I don't know if he built it for his ego or what, but the reputation is there and the quality is there. So I look at that and I say, you mean I could own 2 of those for what I own over here? 2. That to me is the sledgehammer that I had to wake me up and say, hey, what isn't right here? If we're talking strictly real estate. And I believe that's what the discussion is.
Correct. Yes, we're here to talk about the real estate, yes.
Okay. In 25 years in this community, I have not come to be adversarial. Whenever I find myself at odds with the town, I try and speak plainly, my side of the story. I don't bring an attorney with me. I don't think that's necessary. You have explained to me what the situation is. I'm basically guilty until I can prove myself innocent in this particular format. Pardon the analogy, but that's basically what it is.
And that's not us, that's the
No,
states.
I understand, it's a state statute. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a student of the law when I have to be. And I don't get any pro bono from my daughter either. So I look at the format here and I say, okay, I'll present simple facts that I know are there and verified and say, okay, why am I paying twice what a high-end place that just recently sold is paying? It doesn't add up to me. I can see a differential here and there of $500,000 maybe. But this, I think, is, look at the other two local fellas. Look at their land values. I don't know how you assess land value on a golf course. Basically, you've taken that piece of real estate by ordinance and locked it up as a recreational amenity for the rest of the time. For me to do anything else with that piece of property, the internal piece, the golf course, is this side of impossible. So here I sit with a recreational amenity. Why is my park land worth so much more, the dirt itself, than my two neighbors, if you want to take the real close look at things? I don't know how far out geographically you'd care to go, but I think if you journey north and get outside of a demographic area that doesn't support this type of enterprise, in other words, population 625, I mean, how many people are going to go to your golf course if you're up in Phelps, Wisconsin, whatever, right? You've got to stick close enough to the comparables here, and I tried to do that. I didn't take some felonious sale from up in Timbuktu that has a shorter season and no demographics to support and say, oh, look what this guy, you only got that. I don't believe that's fair either. I tried to be fair and stick to what's germane right in this area and what's most recent. I'm telling you about a pending, well, it's for sale, okay? And we've got one that's sold 3 years ago, and we've got one that's sold 3 months ago. That's as good information as I can come up with. Questions?
Well, I mean, okay, so we're gonna stick to this. Everyone has this, or is this? All right, so
You want me to read that?
no. I'm talking about the script here, or the order that we're going in.
Oh, okay.
So I guess what we want to do is let you present everything that you have. Anything else? I mean, so to be successful, there's two different ways you can look at this. Would be the uniformity clause. Help me out if I'm going down the wrong path, Mike. It would be looking at I think the two you're referencing are Songbird and Fairways of Woodside, talking about uniformity between the properties, but then there would need to be consideration to adjustments or comparable sales, and again adjustments to be applied to the comparable sales, whether that's yourself or an appraiser doing adjustments, because these aren't identical properties. So
What do you mean when you say the? You mean
well, you presented two sales for us tonight.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's no such thing as identical.
Right, so you need to make adjustments to those sales
Right,
for
I understand
attributes.
I consent that.
So we need to have like some factual information that presents your opinions of adjustments, or ideally an expert, being an appraiser, that would look at comparable sales in the market and make adjustments. I'm just saying that's the way that you're most likely to be successful is having more detailed information.
Okay, I'm not going to go out on the ego area here, but I will tell you this. For 42 years, I've built these type of facilities for a variety of people, whether it's public or private. And in that time, I've come to know the cost of construction, and in owning two of them, now only one, I know the cost of operation, and I understand land values from a perspective of what you can do with that property. Typically has something to do with its value. Now, that being said, for me to go out and hire, pull some guy in by his shirt and say, look, I want you to appraise this, and okay, what do you want? And, okay, here's your $10,000. Now, we've hired an expert. Nothing personal, but I've forgotten more than any one of those experts will ever know about how to construct them and what it costs to run them, because it's been the better part of my 42 years since I've been out rowing my own boat. So for me to hire some guy and he's going to flower it up, I'll stick with the facts, not the fluff. So I don't really, nothing personal against assessors, but some guy take me to something I don't know anything about. Oh, he's an expert, okay, blah, blah, blah. I'll go toe-to-toe, fist-to-fist with any one of those experts when it comes to the golf course.
Sure. And we're not saying that you need to hire an expert, but I guess what I'm getting at is we do need to see some more, and I'm trying to help, if this doesn't work out this year, I'm trying to help you out for next year. So I mean, some more, if you feel as though you're qualified, we would like to see some, again, you say in here costs don't equal value, and we're not saying that, you know, if you spend $12 million on a course that the value is $12 million. I mean, and you're certainly not saying that either.
Right.
But looking at those comparable sales, if you're comfortable enough doing that and applying adjustments to those comparable sales, that's a document that, if you want to prepare that yourself, we would need to see in the submitted testimony to rely on in making a judgment.
Okay, what beyond what I've presented evidentiary do you need to convince you that I'm telling the truth on the comparables? Do I need like a closing statement or what?
I don't
know what.
No,
because when I submitted this form, I said, you know, Sandy, this is terribly simple here. All you do is put this down, and usually I'm used to, you know, a bureaucracy of, you know, name, rank, and serial number. I said, okay. So I said, well, we've got information here. See attached. And then when I called the fella at the town here, I said, okay, I'm going to send this over to you. I said, is that it, or should we forward this to Mike or Mike's office? Because the young lady there that usually handles Lisbon, I forget her name. Judy. I said, you know, well, I talked to her because something came up with some outlots. All of a sudden, they magically became saleable. And it's like, how did this ever happen? I don't get tax bills on lots that were outlots. So I contacted her and said, hey, by the way, I got this form here. I was sending it in. She says, well, why don't you send the information to Mike so that he's got a heads up on it and he gets some time to digest it instead of just springing on him and say, oh, here it is, you know, because I submitted this form to the town, not to Mike. So looking at this form, I thought, boy, okay, so we'll assemble this evidence, and I've got pages of it here, and I had a one sheet thing here, so I thought I presented my case. If you want me to look up the closing, or that I should say I'd have to go backwards on the transfer tax, because I don't know if John Hammes is going to give me his personal information from a closing statement, but I go backwards on a transfer tax at Washington County or Ozaukee County and look that up. The other stuff is mine. Arm's length transaction, hey, here it is. So he's not related to me.
So you've presented the evidence of the 370 and the 2-1, and I don't think anyone is saying that that's not correct. We're not questioning that. we're questioning how we get from those numbers. We'd like your testimony to tell us how we get from those numbers to what your feeling on the assessment is. And again, you didn't state what that should be, but you said below 2 million, but then you also, I think the form says the 1.7, so we're gonna assume that that's the case. We're looking for information on how we get from those comparable sales to the number that you're stating should be the assessment. Factual evidence tonight. We're not questioning those those sale prices.
Okay,
We're saying how do we get from those sale prices?
I guess I labored under the misconception that when we have an assessment situation in the town, we have to gather revenues that by statute, the objective of the assessments and such are to create some type of parity in values, so one guy isn't paying twice what the other guy is for the same exact house. Okay, now we already admit that these houses aren't the same. You know, one's a 2-story and one's a 1-story. I'm talking about golf course, I'm making an analogy here, okay? So, yeah, there is some difference, but they're both, we gotta boil it down to, all of these things are golf courses that we're talking about.
So
Correct?
you're looking at two different things. So comparable sales, adjusting, or uniformity, which would be between those two other courses that haven't sold. And you're absolutely right that you can appeal based on uniformity clause.
Yeah, and
But-
maybe, I know that, and certainly I appreciate Matt trying to help John, I guess to draw out whatever testimony. And maybe it's best, because I'll enter in some different facts, and present some of those things that I think you're maybe asking for. You know, after I have a few questions for John, and then John will get a chance to respond or add additional information.
To you after your testimony.
After my
I mean, so this one, I'm trying to let you present
No, I
anything
appreciate it.
that you want, John.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm trying to be as direct and understandable as possible, but I thought that what we presented was factual, and I don't know to what extent beyond what we've presented, if you want me to do more comparables, would it be better if I brought in 100 comparables? But it's gonna expand the geographic area and invalidate the results, I believe. So I stuck to the immediate and as close a history as possible to today's value.
So you could look at the comparables and assessments and apply you've got a 27-hole golf course.
Okay.
These are 18. There would be an adjustment for that. You have a clubhouse that is of this size, and the other. You have I mean, I know this doesn't help you for assessment purposes. You've got a beautiful course. Songbirds is right on the highway, is pretty flat. How would you quantify the adjustments to those assessments or to the sales of a 9-hole course that's has no development potential in New Berlin? So that's the evidence, that's the information we'd be looking for as part of your testimony. And
Okay.
I recognize you don't have it tonight, but I guess I'm trying to help you out if you
As far
did
as-
or if you had it in the future.
No, I understand, you go 9, 18, 27, but I don't think it's a direct ratio, because if you take and look at, who's the fellow up here with 45 holes? Zimmerman up here off of 167. In 45 holes, you just can't multiply. Look at Silver Spring, their first 18 was everybody thought it was the world's greatest, and then Kuhlman says, well, geez, I might as well bolt on another 18 here, and it turned out to be, if anybody's, it's junk. His first 18, people don't want to play the second one. Okay, so the number of holes, although it gives you capacity, it doesn't necessarily equate to, 9, 18, 27, 36, et cetera. You don't just do the ratio. There's only one clubhouse. Okay, so yes, we have 27. I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, we got 27. Do we have what the bog has as far as amenities? No. We're more blue collar. and I don't apologize for that. But these golfers have different levels of, you know, some guys are rich, okay? And they go to the bog and no big deal to pay $126, you know. By us, it's, you know, the retired guys squawk and the coffee's free. So, come on, you know, it's, there's so many parameters there that I think you gotta boil it back to the real estate. A lot of those parameters have got to do with service level and how you take care of the customer, okay? Location has an impact, but that's a real estate value also. I mean, up in Lomira, he wants to get rid of that course, Dewey Lock, and he can't give it away. He does more weddings than he does outings, and he can't give it away. Well, why? Well, they changed the law for DWI, so they cut in on his men's leagues because people don't want to travel after having a couple beers that far, and it just took the wind right out of his sails. He had me up there about several years ago. We were buying some golf carts from him. He was liquidating some stuff and used golf carts, and he wanted me to build him a subdivision, and we'll share the profit. I said, Dewey, how are you going to get people to come up here? Are they going to work for a Michaels or a Quad up in that area? It's a limited market there. So the location, I'll give you that, you know. I think we're in a favorable location, but you've got two other favorables here. It's not like we're significantly better off in our location than either Woodsides or Songbird. Okay. I'm comparing things to what I believe are pertinent, okay? Not to some place in Zanzibar, if you would. I don't think that's a fair comparison. Or go back in history as far as comparable sales. You've got to be fairly current on them. You can't go back into, take like 1996 where, oh, if you build it, they'll come. Well, then the values were through the roof. So you have to keep your comparables, number one, geographically in the same relative demographics, and then also your sales, your comparable on sales and your time of the sale. You can't pick it from 20 years ago. Is it, I mean, am I?
We understand. Anything else that you want to present tonight before we, again, Mike will go next asking you questions, and then the board will ask you questions. But this is your last opportunity to present new information to the board. You'll have a chance to present your closing comments, at the end. But anything else that you want to communicate to the board or present to the board to support your case?
I guess my question to answer that question is, what are you interested in, a quantity of information or information that's more valid? Because for me to get more comparables, I've got to go to a bigger geographic domain. Okay.
We'd be looking again for how you would quantify taking the comparable sales to support your claim of what the proper assessment should be.
If I was equal to the bog, I'd say, you know, I'd go with the bog's assessment, but I'm not. I'm less than the bog. So where do I start with this argument? I don't want to belabor the point. I'm trying to just stick to the gist of what I know. Do you want me to try and assemble more
detailed information on the comparable sales?
Okay, and sales it's difficult to sell a golf course.
Again,
they are for sale, but to get that out there, I've got to expand. And once again, when I get outside the the real deal area of what we're talking about, because real estate is based on location, I believe.
No, we understand. I mean, and Mike's going to present some information on comparable sales, but I just wanted to let you have the opportunity if you had any other.
Well, I'll listen to Mike and see if a light bulb goes on, but I don't know that I can get you more information without diluting the real intent of the facts,
Okay.
all right?
So are you, at this point, I'm not going to say resting your case, but are you done presenting information, new information tonight? We don't want to go over the same point, but
No,
we are statutorily here until 8 o'clock, so we're giving you as much time as you want.
You know, I will say this, it is the seventh game of the Stanley Cup tonight. From a factual standpoint, that first paragraph, I said there that, you know, the history of how golf has, it's like bowling alleys, it kind of, if you want a successful bowling alley, that guy's there all the time. Bowling alleys have fallen in value too. Generally recreational stuff, even skiing for young kids, it's like, hey, don't you want to do anything physical anymore? So what, I don't know if it's, what besides the recession and things like that, what impact, you know, the golf world, you know, why it's being compressed. I'm not in the genius category there, but it is down. Okay. We used to have every fish peddler in the world come around and throw money around before the recession. Yeah, it takes his clients out, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden that went away, like with the wind when 08 hit. Right? I think what I presented in that letter is
Sure. No, and I think we all now have had a chance to review the information you sent. So,
all right.
thank you, John.
Thank you.
For Mike, do you have questions for John?
Yeah, I do. John, I guess as an overview of golf, because you were in what we'll call as the good times in the 90s.
Yeah, we opened in 95 or 96.
2001 was a monumental year in golf.
I don't know when it peaked, but
With not, well, right, with 9/11, and then things changed.
right.
And then I just thought I heard you say it again, they changed again with the Great Recession that further limited rounds and.
Well, discretionary income, everybody, you know, unless you were insulated by some inherited wealth, discretionary income went down as the recession went down. Everybody's looking at their 401k and their future, and jobs were cut back, and people were forced to take wage cuts from if they were working for the wrong place. I didn't believe in that myself, still don't, but nevertheless, the whole economy was suppressed, and along with that, golf wasn't immune from that, so there was that factor. And then you have a bunch of leveraged golf courses that people buy and say, well, geez, you know, money's cheap, let's go. All of a sudden, it comes back at them, and there's a literal ton of these things on the immediate bank sale type situation. That's how I ended up with the piece of junk down there in New Berlin. So smart I am, but nevertheless, that had a significant impact on value. Okay, I think on a lot of values. So golf, like I say, was not immune from that.
So with those two, I'll call them life-changing events.
Right.
Golf has never recovered.
I don't see it.
I mean, as an industry, different courses are excelling for different reasons, but golf has been trending downward.
Well, I would say so.
Okay.
That's my opinion anyway.
Okay. And then, you know, I know we had discussion as part of, we'll call it the open book, you know, for at least a few weeks ago, if not a month or so. We discussed income and expense. And so it's your understanding that the business, even though it's intertwined with the real estate, shouldn't be considered in the assessment.
I don't believe that, I believe the business to be independent of the real estate itself. The business is what you do day to day. How you get the customer in the door, how you take care of them, how you get them to come back, okay? My analogy with, if a guy's in a $50,000 house and he happens to have a business of doing stuff over the phone, he makes himself $2 million. Well, the guy next door works at McDonald's, makes 15 grand a year. They're both in the same $50,000 houses. What does the way this guy makes money with that particular setup have to do with what this guy makes in the same identical piece of real estate? Now, that's kind of a rough analogy, but nevertheless, you can let it swing in the wind, and you get out of it what you put into it. Now, another thing too is, if you've got an owner that puts the money back into the people, and keeps it internal to the business instead of taking it out, buying a boat and a fancy car and a third vacation home and all that stuff, okay? You wanna run a business that way, fine. I don't, all right? I've been through a couple of recessions here, and it takes some dry powder to get through them. And I'm not going to subject myself to a bank. Now, the upside of not being bound to a bank is, even though interest rates are cheap, number one, you can sleep at night, number two, you save that 5-6% if you could even get a loan on a golf course nowadays. So that's why I profess that the real estate is one thing, and the way a business is run is quite another.
Okay. Any of the golf course sales that have happened, I mean, there's always been some duress with them.
Oh,
Correct?
I believe so.
I mean, there hasn't been, we'll say, just an entirely willing buyer, willing seller.
Oh, no, you can, I mean, you find a buyer, you gotta walk around with him like a piece of C4 explosives. I mean, it's a gentle thing, you know, this guy bought on in October, and, you know, it was a process. There isn't a lot of buyers out there. And actually, the fact of the matter is, this fella bought the place to teach golf. Okay, so he bought it as just, yeah, he's gonna use a few of the holes, but he's gonna have a little academy there, and he's a very good teacher, and he's gonna make it that way instead of as a golf course, which further, I don't know who's buying these lessons, must be well-heeled people, but, he's not running it as a golf course as of about 2 weeks ago. He said, okay, that's it for selling 9-hole rounds. We're into the academy now.
Okay. And then, as long as we're on that's more of a driving range with 9 holes?
It's a 9-hole golf course, and he's sacrificing some of the holes now to integrate a driving range to it, and that's gonna be his business, is to, he didn't have a location, okay, and this was timely and convenient for him, and through the SBA, I shouldn't even, I mean, it's gonna be on TV or whatever, just talking about this poor fellow, but, you know, he has this business plan, and so the SBA granted him a loan, and now he's off and running, but it's really not being run as a 9-hole course anymore. It's being, pardon the word, morphed into a teaching facility. So he's gonna carve out 3 of the holes or so and have, you know, 5, 6 holes or whatever to practice on, and he's gonna have memberships for that type of a venue. So I guess shows you what that golf course is.
Are there any golf courses around that would be similar in quality to yours, like Fire Ridge?
Oddly enough, I'm not a golfer.
Okay.
I participate in a sport on a pretend basis, but strictly for social reasons. And my lack of athletic capacity, especially when it comes to golf, prohibits me from going around and trying all these courses. I've been at more courses than I've worked on as a grading contractor than I have been as a player. So comparing the finished product, in as much as I'm not a golfer, I don't have a lot of firsthand. Like Fire Ridge is that up on?
It's in Grafton, right off I-43.
Right, that was built right around when the bog was being built. Bruce Company did it, I remember, and then it changed hands, I believe, and it's
Frank Romano.
Frank now runs it or owns it. I
He
don't
owns
know. Okay, never golfed it. I don't know what level it's at.
Okay.
It suffers a little bit geographically, just like the bog does, because it's up in that domain where you've got some money up there in Grafton, Mequon type of stuff, but a lot of those guys migrate to private courses when they gain that level of affluence.
Sure. Okay, I don't have any other questions.
All right, this is the board's opportunity to ask John questions.
I have a question. So it says on your form that you filled out that there were changes between 1996 and 2018. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, it's a dynamic situation,
Okay.
without a doubt.
Were there changes in 2017 and that affected?
Yeah, I put a shelter on, and that was a direct assessment
Okay. So in,
of 21,000. You bumped it up that amount, and it said there that this is based on this little picnic shelter I added on to the barn there.
okay. So there was a building, a structure.
Yeah,
that
it was
improved
a rather
in
controversial
2017.
because
Would that would have been done in 18 then? If that's
it would have been done. It was constructed in, well, maybe it was. Yes.
But it was
last
something
year.
new when this.
Yeah, it was. It's like a picnic shelter.
I'm just trying to get you guys because the
Yeah.
21,000 would
Yeah,
be
right,
added
that's-
on to the 2018 assessment to get us the
Right.
2019 assessment. So that would have
Exactly.
been an improvement that happened
Yeah.
after January 1st, 2018, and prior to December 31st,
Right, right. It
2018.
would fall in there, and
Okay.
I'm not arguing that. Okay,
Okay.
that's an improvement.
Right. Were there other improvements that were done in 2018?
No,
That-
not that I'm aware of.
So the course has been built, nothing's changed
No,
with
no,
that?
no. When you have a golf course, like, okay, so we're running short of labor. Let me give you an example. Okay, we had 72 sand traps originally, 72 or 73. Because I know about that because I carved out 99% of them. And they were a pain to do. And then all of a sudden labor, it starts to become invisible. And, hey, Jim, how about we knock off some of these sand traps there? Okay, so one by one, we fill them in with topsoil and grass over them. And there's things like that go on, okay? The boards across the bridges, they got a little weak, so we go out and get, 105 planks, 2x6 by 10 foot oak, and bolt them down. There's continuous repair, there's continuous, we got a lot of trees dying now, there's work like that gets done that changes the appearance of the golf course. Now, have we done any major, like, changes in any of the structures or anything like that? No.
Or the landscaping?
Well, the landscaping, there's a gardener girl there that comes around, she does all the pruning and stuff like that, but we don't, we haven't planted a tree in I don't know how many years. We're busy cutting down the ones that are dead with all the ash that are dying. No, we haven't changed. We finished a tee box that was there since
And
God
just,
knows when, but we finally grassed it.
okay, so I understand the changes that happened last year. The dates of the changes that are described here spanned a large period, but I understand the changes that you're saying happened in the assessment period we're looking at. Did your I don't have the historical records. Did your assess value change in 2018 related to 2017? Is this a,
So
I wouldn't.
this is the
I don't know.
2018. This is the 2019. This is the 21,000 he was referencing.
Right, I
Yeah, but
understand
she's
that.
asking like 17 to 18.
Correct.
Versus 18
That's
to
what I'm
19.
asking.
Okay.
18 and 19 accounts for that shelter, that 21 grand. I'm convinced that,
Okay.
because there's a little description on there why the assessment changed on the tax bill, and
Right.
it said, or it wasn't a bill, it was the assessment, it says due to additional shelter or something like that. So that was pretty clear.
So, right, and I understand that. So other than that, were there changes to the assessed value for this period?
No,
Than last
I
period.
don't recall any bump or deduction
Okay.
or,
So you were taxed at a similar rate last year as you
Yeah.
are this year?
yeah.
Okay, that's what I was trying to
Yeah,
establish, because
and
we don't have
I'm
this.
not arguing the 21. It's there.
Right.
We built. You know, Brian probably goes out there and says, this is about what it's worth,
Or Judy.
or Judy, and looks at it and says, okay, it's picnic shelter, what are those worth? And puts a number on it.
Okay. And the year before that, were you assessed at the same rate? Similarly within?
I'm
the-
assuming, because I don't recall any change. There may have been a little bump, you know, I mean, my insurance guy goes up and, you know, he puts on 5% a year on buildings, just carte blanche. It's like, well, now it's probably valid because construction costs are so high, but during the recession, that 5%, is, are you crazy?
I just want to understand the history of the property. So from the
Yeah.
time that you bought it in 1996, as there's been this continual improvement until
Mm-hmm.
2018, which has resulted in the amount of money you've indicated having been invested in it, when was the huge jump from the valuation at the purchase price in taxes to what has now been a several-year assessed value, essentially?
Well, we
Uh,
purchased the property, you want to go back into history, the town actually still owes me $6,500 for my study that I did that showed that I reduced the runoff back in the day when Jerry Schultz was, I think that was his name,
Schmitz?
Schmitz was the town chairman. But alas, I digress, you know.
Because you bought, okay, just to clarify, you bought raw vacant land.
Right.
And constructed the
Right.
Yeah.
course.
Exactly.
So at the point at which you constructed the course is when I would assume that
Okay.
that tax
Once-
value changed
Once I
significantly,
gained
right?
permission to construct a course, it took the better part of a year and a half to get the first 9 done and grow it in, and then some, and then at the same time start the second 9, and then first, after that second 9 came on board, we had the clubhouse completed. Now, there's been no addition to the clubhouse since then. It's the same physical building. It had to replace the roof, but I don't think that impacts the tax situation.
But what you're saying is essentially then, since that was done, your tax valuation has been consistent, right? I'm trying to establish what year that happened.
Oh, I don't know, I'd have to look back on the entire tax history.
But it wasn't last year or
Oh,
the
no,
year
no, no,
before.
no,
Or- Okay.
It's.
I was just trying to get
It's been,
his
the
understanding
completion of
of
the
that.
third 9 was, that didn't occur until 2001 or 2002. So at that point, possibly, then that would have been the plateau point of taxation.
Like 2001 or 2002?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because before that, it was more dynamic in that we didn't have the third 9 done, and once it got to that third 9 being done, then you've got a completed product, and then establishing that levy. There's not a lot that went on after that of any consequence, whether it's buildings or grading. And once you do it, you don't want to rip it back up and say, oh, we were just kidding, let's start over. It's there. It's a maintenance issue going forward after that. So I think 2001, 2002 would be where the jet leveled off.
Thank you.
Linda, Becky?
I have a question. Have you ever disputed before the amount of your assessment on the golf course?
No, as a matter of fact, it's a very good question. In hindsight, if I knew it was this askew from my competitors, I certainly would have taken the time.
Okay.
But seeing as how I retired a year ago from the earthwork business, all of a sudden I've found this time, supposedly, to take care of things I was too busy to attend to, which cost me a significant amount of money.
Okay. And
That's an excuse, not a reason. Okay, I'll admit to that.
I guess, and I think Matt was trying to get at it, how did you come up with the 1.7 million? I mean, is that just a number out
That's
of your?
that's what we have. Okay, here's what we, have. Didn't it ask how much did you pay for the land? No, wasn't it?
Yeah, it did.
So
Section 4.
The 1.
Acquisition price.
The 1.
Oh, yeah.
No, the 1.7 is what you have on the form as
Is
your
what-
statement of what you feel the
What you-
assessment should be.
Where's it say 1.7?
Objection to
It's
the
in the
real estate
top
assessment.
box, right under the
On
legal
there, you
description.
have down that you
Oh, okay.
think the assessment, total assessment
Well, you
should
can
be
see, I
1.7.
scientifically arrived at that because there's 6 zeros there, or 5, I don't know. But, I said, what are we supposed to put down here, Do we want to get laughed out of court, or are we making a statement here? Is this negotiable? I have no familiarity with how this, how the procedures go here. I mean,
Okay,
that's a starting point, certainly. I guess I look at it like, get me in the ballpark here. I can own 2 bogs for what I pay in taxes here. That's the bell ringer for me. And not that the bog is the benchmark of the world, but it's real, it's sold, and it's there, and that's what it's assessed at. And that was the smelling salts of the whole deal. Then I started looking at the other ones, and, well, how come we're the highest assessed golf course in Waukesha County? That's a real flattering position to be in if you got an eagle. Unfortunately, I don't have much of one. With the amount of failures I've manufactured, I don't serve my eagle. That's not the purpose here. So if I wanted to pat my back and say, oh, look at this, number 1, it's not for sale. Number 2, nor will it ever be. It's going to the kids. And number 3, I just want equity. I want parity. I want fairness. I don't come to this town and ask for this free or that free or the other thing free. I also don't burden the town with call the cops for there's a fight over there or anything like that. It's I mind my business. I pay for my permits. Twice a year the sheriff is sent over there to check on whether I have a liquor license or not. I have one, but you don't have to check it twice a year. I pay for it. It's a matter of record. It's like, come on, fellas, I got nothing to hide here.
okay, I just wondered where that number came from.
Yeah,
So that was
it's
just.
felonious.
Okay,
Okay, it's
that's all I,
felonious.
okay.
Okay.
All right, yeah,
Please
thank you.
please don't take it as an insult, but it is not scientifically arrived at. But my feeling is that there's a big disparity between what I'm being assessed at and what competition and the rest of the world views as value.
Okay. That's all I had.
We just to help you out moving forward, we need that number to be scientifically arrived at. I mean, to be supported. So that's so without having that, that's a difficulty that we're in.
Okay, now, this is like asking the defense attorney, and I'm the prosecutor, vice versa here, how I should proceed here.
After Mike presents his case, you can ask him questions.
Okay.
So, Linda, do you have any questions?
I sure do. I have a
John?
couple questions. Okay. For one thing, it seems like you're disputing the land value, but not the building value. Is that understandable?
It appears that it's skewed in that direction.
So you're disputing the land value?
Right.
Not the building value?
Right.
Okay. Now, because you sound very knowledgeable, and I'm impressed by what you're saying, but I think what Matt has been trying to say is we need paper. I know you said 1,700,000 you have come up magically. We need verification as to how you adjust paperwork. Be it a person here that's your representative and paying $10,000 or whatever it might be for an assessor. Do you, because I think we need some backup to this.
Okay.
Do you also have, I know Mike has a degree in assessments and appraisal. Do you have any kind of a degree in assessment and appraisals?
I do have a degree,
What is it in?
landscape architecture.
Okay.
Okay, it might as well be Grimm's Fairy Tales, okay?
Right.
My degree comes from purchasing land, taking risk, developing land. I'm not a
Experience.
developer, but
Right.
it comes from experience.
Okay, I've got you. Okay, that's the question that I had for you. Thank
Okay,
you.
the earlier one, I was gonna write that down as far as, okay, you said it must be scientifically arrived at, and the disparity on the land value.
Because you seem to be questioning the land value,
That's-
not the buildings.
Right.
It's the land.
Right.
Okay.
Uh,
I needed a clarification on that.
Okay, now, as a question on the buildings, can I ask Mike something?
No,
After he presents his
Okay,
case.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna ask him about depreciation.
thank you.
All right, so if the board has no other further questions for John, we are going to move on to Mike, and he's not yet been sworn in, correct?
Correct.
All right, so
All right, raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Very good.
Oh, a lot of reading.
Well,
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I guess I'd like to start off by saying, certainly I've worked with John in the past, not only in the golf course, but, with his residential lots, and our office has always had good cooperation, so, just for the record. We did talk at open book, there was some discussion of golf courses in general, the laws, and then the new Berlin golf course that was sold and was a part of. The first thing I'd like to enter into testimony is called the 2009 Board of Review Appeal Considerations for the Town of Lisbon. And essentially what this document states is that essentially there's a request by Mr. Spitz to revalue a singular property in a non-revaluation year. And that kind of goes at odds with equity uniformity in which the assessments were arrived at. The assessments were arrived at using professionally acceptable appraisal standards, and that would account for mass appraisal, not singular or fee appraisal. We followed 70.32 of the state statutes, as well as the property assessment manual, and IAAO guidelines. IAAO is the International Association of Assessing Officers. And we're not required, to follow use path, but I believe that we do qualify under Standard 6, which applies to mass appraisal. And then, so an overview of mass appraisal is simply, it's a systematic group of appraisal of groups of properties as of a given date using standardized procedures, statistical testing, and in an approach that will try to create uniformity and equity. In the Department of Revenue, Wisconsin State Statute 70.32 in the property assessment manual all follow, again, mass appraisal standards. The assessment cycle is pretty much dictated by each community as to when they perform revaluations or when major changes to value are to be done with the now 4 different types of revaluations that are available. The last revaluation in the town of Lisbon was in 2013. So I think, the golf course is atypical to a standard property in the town. There's only 3 golf courses that I'm aware of in the town of Lisbon. That's actually more than most communities. use the same approach for all three golf courses in trying to recognize size, age, location, quality, and its amenities. So then the next page I have is Lisbon golf course comparison. And what I tried to do is break these down into easily readable facts. Assessed value, number of holes, the assessed value divided by the number of holes, acreage, clubhouse size, age, and then accessory buildings. And so Ironwood Golf Course, its current assessment is at $4,245,900, and that assessment changed slightly for 2019 because there was a terrace and a patio that was added. Giving a history, and I've got a digital history that goes back to 2004. The assessment in 2004 was at $2,889,500. That stayed constant until 2006 when there was a revaluation performed that year. The assessment then increased to $5,047,700. The assessment stayed basically the same until 2013, in which the assessment then was reduced to its value of $4,224,300, to which it stayed through 2018. The only reason it changed for 2019 was that porch and terrace. So looking at another comparable golf course in Lisbon would be the Fairways in Woodside. That is an 18-hole course. It has two parcels. The clubhouse is on approximately 5 acres, and then the golf course is on approximately 158 acres. Their combined assessment is at $3,420,600.
I'm not interrupting, but I'm just want to. So that's the reason for the difference in information that was presented earlier, is because we're looking at both tax key numbers there.
Is
All right.
Mr. Spitz's information about the fairways did not include the clubhouse. It was only the golf course and the maintenance building.
So the maintenance building is in what we profess, but the clubhouse isn't.
Correct.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt, I just wanted
And then the Songbird Golf Club over on 164, an 18-hole course, its assessment is $1,825,500. The differences, not only in the number of holes, is Ironwood has a 10,500 square foot clubhouse versus Fairways is 74 square feet, and then Songbird at 5,687 square feet. So they're all very similar in age, like in 96, 97, and 2003. So they're a newer style course, newer style clubhouse, and then arguably there can be some differences in the clubhouse and its stature, but size is the biggest difference. The easiest way that I know is to compare golf courses is on dollars per hole and breaking out the utility and size of the clubhouse. So Ironwood Golf Course is at $157,256 per hole. Fairways or Woodside is at $190,033 per hole, and then Songbird is at $101,417 per hole. There is would be an adjustment that would be made because of the number of holes that Ardenwood has, that it is less per hole than fairways. So the average, that we have of these three courses within the town of Lisbon is at 149,569 per hole. I've provided in a listing, kind of an overview, a GIS image of each of these courses. There's nothing unique about either of these courses in their location or utility. It could be said that there's advantages and disadvantages to both. Ironwood Golf Course, of course, is contained in one parcel without having to cross roads or kind of juggle through a subdivision that the Fairways and Woodside enjoys. They have to go across Woodside Road and then they go around that design community. So the golf course, separate from the the buildable residential areas, is best used as a golf course. It doesn't have as great of a higher use if there was. And then looking at the Songbird overlay that's on Highway 164, it's pretty much a rectangular portion, and then it has another rectangle on the northern edge. It conceivably is not erratic in its overlay. And if there is a future other than that, with that said, there wasn't a consideration for residential or commercial development. It's an as-is opinion of value. So we aren't assessing something that could be. It's rather its use as currently permitted, and its highest and best use right now is as a golf course until that's changed. And when it changes, or if it would change, that may impact values if the highest and best use is different. But it wasn't considered. And then if one was to construe the blog as the equivalent or that sale, at 2.2 million, which, again, I struggle with golf course valuation because every sale is typically under duress, or there's some motivation, almost always by the seller, which may be the owner, could be the bank, could be just before the bank gets it. The sales that, for example, Erin Hills, even though developer Bob Lang was in a world of hurt, he had kind of the golden parachute as a way out through a money manager that had an ulterior goal that took over and made a really nice course. But there hasn't been, in my opinion, much of a market as we would compare to other commercial property, or certainly to residential property, where there's just a willing buyer, willing seller, with no duress, normal market competitive conditions. It doesn't exist. So as an appraiser or an assessor, we're trying to, work from our dual standard as the assessor is equitable and uniform assessments and application, as well trying to arrive at a market value, which is, that's the tougher of the two goals. So when I happen to appraise as an assessor a good many golf courses, hence my introduction of Fire Ridge, which I think is a similar situation. 18-hole golf course, in an outline although I think it's desirable. They have sight lines from I-43, a smaller clubhouse, but it had power lines running through it. I think the courses are similar. That 18-hole course has an assessment of $2,917,000 or $162,000 a hole. I worked with Frank Romano, who's very active in golf in Wisconsin. His family owns the golf course at Slinger on 164. And I have spoken many times with him. That's as a matter of fact, Fire Ridge was purchased in 2003 by Frank for nearly $3.9 million. And since then, of course, the economy has changed. So I think we recognize that in the assessment of, not only Fire Ridge, all of the golf courses in Lisbon. And that's why the assessment for Ironwood went down a little over $800,000 in 2013. So I guess I've tried to keep uniformity and equity using standard mass appraisal practices. There have been sales of property. Silver Spring Golf Club, Old Hickory up in Beaver Dam, Turnberry Country Club, although that's in Lakewood, Illinois, has some measure of comparability. And then the Oshkosh Country Club is sold. But all of those have had a measure of duress with them. The legend at Merrill Hills, or Merrill Hills sold into the Legends, the club itself was struggling, didn't have enough members, and I can't remember the fellow that started the Legends, but it's worked out well for them. But they bought it at a really nice price, and it helped the members of the club. The bog, and aside from that, I'm not aware of any other transactions unless something's happened very, very recent. But again, having duress, I don't know that it's a fair example to make an appraisal chart with kind of highlighting the differences in quality, amenities, numbers of holes, clubhouse size, and such. So I didn't go and use that methodology. Mine is one of uniformity and equity, and trying to maintain that. I've got nothing further at this time.
So, John, you go first with your questions, and then the board will follow. Have any questions of Mike?
It was Gaudian that bought Merrill Hills. It was a shade over $2 million. Bought during a difficult time. Did have development land, which he's currently platting for a subdivision, although he's having a hard time rousting any interest, because Jackson, a great salesman, but he does charge you for parking darn near it as golf courses. So he bought that at a very favorable price. Did include a large clubhouse, which he took the liberty of remodeling and such, and made it into what he is. Actually, the developer of Silver Spring, Ron Kuhlman, and him were partners on the golf venue. Ron, since has passed away, his daughters have now advocated their percentage of the course, and Jack's out on his own with all of his properties, his golf properties. But that sold for a shade over $2. Had a big pool and such, but that was somewhat of a detriment because people wanted to use it as a golf place. It became a family place a bit, and then that was the reason for the demise of the membership. Okay, as near as I can tell. Okay,
It was an old school country club
exactly.
that couldn't survive.
Right, and a nice property and good demographics. You're right there, just south of Waukesha. I want to apologize for any remarks I made about assessors. Okay, I don't. It's just, I kind of know what I feel is, having worked for developers, and I always ask them, hey, what'd you pay for land, and how does the math work, and et cetera, and kind of ingrain myself into their side of the story. So I do have some, experience in land values, and I'll try and come up with that. The Beaver Dam parcel was bought by the fellows at the Oaks very recently, and I think that's well within the geographic circle, if you would, and the sale was very recent, it was this spring. And I heard that the place went for like, what, 800?
I haven't, I mean, it sold,
I'm not talking 800 million either.
no, it sold for 600,000, well, that was 2012, so if it just sold
Oh,
recently.
it just sold recently to the fellows that built the Oaks out on I-94 there,
Okay.
just the side of Madison.
Yes,
They
I'm
bought
sorry.
it, and I think it was 7. If not, I don't think it exceeded 8.
Okay.
I don't get the daily rag as far as, oh, look at this gossip and whatever, but these people call Mike and talk like magpies on a wire, so that's how I get this information covertly, but that was a sale this spring.
Okay.
And that was under duress, extreme duress, because where you get some of this stuff is the suppliers that come by and deliver your beer, or your food, or whatever, they got, because they want to make small talk, and they say, yeah, we don't deliver to that guy anymore because he doesn't pay his bill. Well, then you get the inkling that something's going on. So there is duress in a lot of the sales. I would say the majority of the sales. Okay. But if a guy wanted to include that, I don't think that would feather the nest, so to speak. It's a beat down price because it was a beat down deal, and the bank probably had the revolver to the guy's head.
Excuse me, can I go in out there and then come back for the board discussion? Can I do that?
Dan's the expert there. I mean,
Dan told me I could.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Do you have any questions for the assessor at this time? I mean,
well, we're going to let him keep on going. I mean,
Yes, I don't wanna
but can
cut
she
him
be
off.
part of? Can she be in a quorum of both meetings at 2 meetings at one time?
I don't see why not. I think you've heard the testimony from both
Right.
sides.
Well,
so if you
obviously, I
don't have
want to
any
be
other
in here when we
questions-
talk about it. But part of it, I don't need to be here. Is that correct? That's what you.
If you can come back during deliberations, if you
Yes.
don't have any questions for either one,
I
then
don't.
that's fine.
Okay, then I will come back. Just let me know if that's okay.
Okay, I'll
Thank
come
you.
get you.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
One of the final items, I hate to see it the last item, but one other item is, when we discuss the land values and the future use, future potential use of any of these properties, unless a huge sewer project came through and that area was sewered, what I've done to that property and contouring it renders it unusable for a mound system. And I believe the same thing would exist with any of the other golf courses. So the future use of those properties, looking toward land values, is what I would have to call very limited. It's confined, for the most part, to a golf course. I don't think it can become a ski hill or any other recreation, go-kart track, motocross track, and it's zoned recreation, but to take that and change it, I think there'd be a war to be fought with the neighbors. I had a tough enough time with them when it was gonna be a golf course. I thought I was building a rendering plant at one time compared to, I mean, you were around.
I grew up in Mountain Shadows.
Yeah, the floods, that I caused.
I think you had more problems to the north than you did to the south with neighbor concerns.
Whatever, irregardless, I don't think there's any chance, let's say, 1,000,000 to 1, that you can use it for much of anything
Well, no,
else.
my comment was, people always look at golf courses and say, well, if it changed use, it would be worth this much as a subdivision. But I did consider that, because
It can't.
the only catalyst here that can make that happen is sanitary sewer.
And an all-out war
Right.
with the neighbors, which I'm sure the town doesn't wanna
But
have. And I'm too old to have that war anyway.
just to let you know that it wasn't considered, it wasn't valued that way.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I think, you know, this identifies these properties. I am in error in as much as there was 2 tax keys on that Fairways and Woodside. I think another issue is the cost per hole. It's difficult to divide that back in there because you're taking a mass number. It might be a little more valid, and I'm not throwing stones here, but if we took the buildings out and drove the land assessment into the cost per hole, for what that's worth, I don't know. But that's not necessary at this point. It's just when you group the whole alphabet soup together and divide by 27, 18, 9, or whatever, I think it dilutes the value of the information, the per hole, for what it's worth. I just feel that the land is excessive. And I don't know how.
And you can state, you're going to have a chance to state your closing arguments
Okay.
to us.
All right.
Do you have any other questions for Mike?
On the assessment of these golf courses, is that your domain within your office? Do you handle that, or do?
For the most part, yes.
Okay. How many other, I mean, it seems like your geographic domain is far-reaching. You referred to Beaver Dam. Did you get involved in that up there, or?
I did not in Beaver Dam. I do assessment work in 11 counties.
Okay.
And
So in those 11 counties, there are quite a few courses, right?
if you had to pick a number, it's between 30 and 35 different golf courses.
Oh, that's all that, yeah. Obviously not the private, I'm sorry, not the public ones, okay? You know, the Nagalaki, Wanakee,
Right.
that's a non-event. Never mind, we have to compete against them, but alas, I digress. So, you've got this 35 courses that you looked at and evaluated. Do you do work in Ozaki County, or where the bog is? Or is that-
Yep.
Okay, so you're familiar with?
Familiar with the terms and conditions of the sale?
You are. Okay, am I in error?
Well, that it sold? No. I was also privy to the income and expense that capitalized that sale. The sale of these properties is all based on the production of revenue.
I understand your point, but I respectfully disagree. The sale of Erin Hills certainly wasn't,
That's an aberration.
yeah. Ziegler, that was obviously he had nothing but wheelbarrows full of money, and he had an ego to serve. We did work out there under his domain, nice guy, but not a moneymaker. That was a totally different flight path, if you would.
Correct.
I guess when a person looks at land values, Mike, what do you go back to on a benchmark basis for saying, okay, now this land can only be used for this purpose ultimately, unless some, nuclear bomb goes off as far as development and sewers and stuff. How do you get to a land value then?
Well, the land value, the way that the approach used in Lisbon was, the land value included all of the site improvements, tees, greens, fairways.
Okay.
It could have easily shifted those values to the improvement side, but the way that's the way the courses were valued in Lisbon.
Okay, so the amount of let's call it earthwork and features and such, integrated into the land, added with the base value of the land,
Correct.
gives you your land value.
Correct.
And our land value is higher, because you feel that we've done more and have more to offer based on what's there versus the next guy down the block. Like Woodside.
Yeah.
That's a, by your own admission and mine also, we concur that that's a very subjective. You gotta,
Measured subjectivity, yes.
yes, okay.
But the 206, okay, all right. I mean, the acreage would be quantifiable.
Yeah,
Any other questions for Mike before we ask? Keep on going.
no, I was just going to try and submit land value information based on what I know now, what you're looking for. And Mike said that he's not looking to value it at development potential because that's, although that's more of a commodity, that's all over the board, value-wise. And you wonder sometimes what these people pay, what they expect to get back, but that's a whole different arena. And I'm glad that that isn't the comparison, because that, talk about shooting a moving target. It's like shooting at the moon. So I'll have to look at like, what, farmland or, but farmland has development potential in essence, to try and then add to it the improvements for the total, the land improvements.
Yeah, the only way to, in my opinion, to value this is as one moving entity, one entire entity, land and buildings.
Okay,
And then by state statute, we have to do an allocation.
okay.
So it's one entity, they're inseparable.
Okay, so do you do them separately and then add them together? Or do you just
Well,
take a look at it and say, okay, I think this is about what we have to allocate to the buildings?
No, what he said was that it's the overall, and that's what we've been trained. Is it you can only contest the overall assessment, and then it becomes allocated.
Okay, so.
You can argue that the contributing value of the improvements, that yours is this much per square foot or whatever else, but we're looking at the total number is what you contest, and then it is allocated at the end of the day.
You can do a land residual, a building residual analysis.
Okay.
You know, you can do a build-up method, raw land, cost of improvements, and then you depreciate the cost of those improvements. Because the cost to buy the land, build the course, would far exceed what its market value is.
Yeah,
Today.
we concur on that. Depreciation. Certain improvements are depreciable. Land obviously is not, unless you own a quarry. We all know how that works, because GED owns all of them now. But there's no depletion, but you can depreciate certain improvements to a golf course. For instance, irrigation is a 15-year life. Actually, tees and greens have a life to them based on how they age. I don't know state statute-wise what that depreciation cycle is. What's a building, 39 years?
It depends on the type of building, but yes, there are different depreciations. The way we would look at it as an assessor is, you know, those are normal and expected. So
Okay.
there's some maintenance items, so if you put in a new irrigation system and it did nothing more than replace the existing,
Right.
it wouldn't be an increase of value, it's a maintenance.
Right, okay, same thing with a building?
Well, a roof, windows, that type of thing, but a new building versus an older building.
Okay, so when you assess, let's take buildings for instance, not go into the land aspect of it, but when you assess a building or buildings on a person's property, and they have aged and have depreciated, do you look at them as, oh, this thing looks like a dump, or this is well maintained, it's gotta be, and do you ignore depreciation completely in your assessment? I'm not criticizing, I'm just trying to find out how
No,
it's done.
depreciation is a part of any evaluation of any building.
Okay,
And, you know, so buildings do two things, is they depreciate. But in the market, do they appreciate faster than they depreciate?
right.
And then the third variable would be maintenance or repair or, improvements. How does that offset depreciation?
You know, is the maintenance deferred and the thing's dying, or is it, kept up and its value keeps ascending based on inflation or whatever, and versus the depreciation factor of a quote-unquote old building? Okay, I understand how that's arrived at. Good thing we're not talking about the Bradley Center. I think that, short of bringing forth some land value information, that what I have is what you're gonna get.
So if you're done asking Mike questions, which I hear you are, then I'm going to ask anyone on the board if they have questions of Mike.
I do.
I don't.
All right. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on the land value of Fairways of Woodside, since the information, if I'm understanding right, that Mr. Spitz provided only had one tax key, but there are actually two. Would I be right to have calculated the land value of the Fairways of Woodside to be $2,077,500? Or very close there too?
No, the land would be at just shy of 1.1 million, I believe.
With the two tax keys together?
Two tax keys.
Okay, so I'm confused here now too. You got 3, 4, 2,600.
Let them
Okay.
ask the questions first, and
Yeah,
we'll
so-
come back at the end.
Was the improvement value that Mr. Spitz, I understand the land value that he had was off essentially by 150,000 is what you're saying. Was the improved value of the land off significantly? Is that where the discrepancy comes in then?
Well, there's this 5-acre piece that supports 5 acres plus the clubhouse. And the total value of that was approximately 1.2 million.
I'm sorry, so if you broke down the assessed value of the 3.4 million for
Right.
Fairways,
Okay,
how would you break that down between land value and improvements?
approximately 1.1 million is land.
Okay, and so then the rest of that is improvements?
Correct.
Okay. Is dollar per hole, and thank you, I have a couple other questions. Is dollar per hole the standard way of valuing golf courses for assessors?
I think it's a good and reasonable way for comparison in making adjustments, that and the clubhouse. But if we're looking at the course itself, yes, I think you wouldn't value it that way, but for comparison purposes, that's the easy way to look at it. Yes.
I have a limited real estate understanding. Generally, I've heard about things as a cost per acre. And so is that a similar value base for golf courses as it would be for other land that's being looked at?
I think it's a reasonable way to approach, to compare them.
So and if I understand right, part of the reason why the business of a golf course is looked at in terms of the land is that the land essentially is the business, and that gives you an indication of the value of the land by understanding the business?
Correct. I think a golf course is no different than a strip mall or an apartment building. Is the income and expenses derive a net operating income.
And when you value a strip mall, or do you also look at income and expenses then to value those?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when my limited understanding of assessments, if, for example, an assessor were to come to my house and ask to come in and I were not to let them in, they're then going to make their estimated guesses on the values of my property without having seen it, and I'm kind of stuck with that, right?
Based on the best information known, yeah.
Okay, so would it be similar for a golf course that the best information knowing in the absence of income and expenses to look at, you're similarly left with the best information that you have to look at?
Yeah, I
And
think-
we're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, unless I was to estimate, what the income and expenses would be, I've got to use the other methods available.
Okay. All right. The only other question I have, and because I tried to break this down in a cost per acre for comparable golf courses, and I broke that down for Songbird because that's the basis that I know, and I understand that dollar per hole is also a tool to use. But when I broke it down by cost per acre for golf courses for Songbird, which has obviously also a lower dollar per hole that you've attributed to it, I came up with essentially $6,071 an acre. When I did it for fairways, I came up with an invalid number because I wasn't sure on what the land value was separate from the improvements. But I'm thinking it's not too much higher. When I do that for Ironwood, I come up with a different value per acre. So that's kind of why I was asking whether dollar per hole is the way to look at it, or kind of dollar per acre. Similarly comparing things within Lisbon as opposed to differing communities, because I think different communities have different land values attributed to them. How do we explain the discrepancy in the land value itself
I think
per acre?
location is the main consideration. Quality, of course, would be the other.
Okay. So the quality, of course, plays into it, which speaks to the credit of the people maintaining it, absolutely, right? And then the absence of the income and expenses to kind of counterbalance that, perhaps?
Well, I think that would be a good test, because these aren't gonna sell, a golf course is not gonna sell based solely on its looks. And solely on its location. It's gonna be sold on, can I get a return on my investment? There are a few owners, like Mr. Spitz, that, that just love this environment. The Zimmermans up at Kettle Hills are the same. They run it as a business, and they do a very good job at it, but they wanted to own the golf course and keep it in their family. So I think those are aberrations, to what happens in the market, and it's on the production of income that these businesses or golf courses are sold as.
Okay, thank you.
And so they are so intertwined
Right.
that, to buy something that has no revenue, one has to create the revenue. And it's easier to buy a stream, even if it's a poor stream, better than zero.
And similarly, like when somebody looks at buying an apartment building, they look at what the income and expenses for that property is, correct? That's also commonly used.
And in light of income, say a brand new building or a brand new course, they're gonna have a pro forma of what do I believe I can receive in income, and what are my expenses gonna be.
I don't have any other questions.
Becky, do you have any questions?
No,
for
I
me?
don't have any questions.
I have a few, but I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know that they're needed or relevant, but I'm just going to go through a couple real quick. You mentioned, just we have the record correct, prior evidence was submitted that the bog sold for 2.1, you stated 2.2. Is there, do you wish to correct that, or based on the information you have, it's 2.2?
That's what I was led to believe. If it was 2.1, I'd be willing to decide that.
Okay. And you're basing your case on uniformity and equitable assessments, and I think the information presented here overall supports that pretty well. But when you break it down into land and improvements based on size, based on quality, and then comparing Fairways and Ironwood, that appears to be lost. I think maybe that's something to look at again, but we're looking at the overall assessment, so that's not a concern here tonight, but that's a concern potentially moving forward. Would you anything to state that maybe we're missing otherwise?
Well, if I look at that, there is an overweight to the land value of Ironwood, but there's likely an underweighting to the value of the improvements.
All right. And we talked about the hierarchy, which we understand your points on the income and how that certainly valuing. I mean, in real life, that's you are correct. But for the board and our evidence, if there are comparable sales, that comes into play prior to the income approach.
As a question, I think right in the Markarian hierarchy is sale of subject, and then second to that would be comparable sales if there was belief that they were comparable and they were arm's length. Because if they aren't arm's length, they can't be comparable. And then if there is no comparable sales, then you would resort to cost, income, or any other methods of valuation.
So in those comparable sales, where you're privy to the income information and privy to the income information from the subject, you can kind of tie those into the sales comparison approach, if you will, through justifying maybe your adjustments.
Well, right, and since since information about income and expenses is confidential, I could bring to you that income analysis that was done for the bog.
Sure.
Or that would have been done for any golf course, and that would be then breaking that confidentiality. So the only time that confidentiality can be broken, for example, is contestment of the value by the owner. So if the Hamas group would have contested the bog, it would then have been entered in public record. But it isn't, so I can't violate that trust.
Okay, and the only other thing I wanted to state, just for the record, was that we are looking at multiple tax key numbers for the property here, but yet all the assessment is listed under the one
Correct.
key number. Just okay, all right.
The others are assessed with.
Okay, all right. No further questions by the board. Then we're going to allow for final comments from each party, and then we'll close testimony to deliberate. At this point, are we going to just, we have a quorum here, let Linda stay out there and just the three of us go, or do you want to, if Linda's going to be part of the final vote, she should be part of
Yeah.
this.
And I gotta grab a cup of water.
I'll go grab her.
Need water.
Right, but I need a cup. Thank you.
Who are you rooting for tonight?
I root for nobody. It's just I'm getting these texts from one of my brothers. Where are you? And my wife says, "Are you in jail?" And he's dinging away. Did you see that? What's the matter with you? Aren't you watching? It's like, yeah. Don't worry about it, all right? I'll watch you on ESPN or whatever. I don't care who wins. It's just there's nothing like it.
Yeah, the intensity is.
Oh, it just. And guys tell me, it was only 1-0. It can be 0. I mean, all it takes is a second to change it. Okay. Oh, she's coming back.
She's Linda's coming back.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
yeah.
talked. Okay. Sorry. All right. All right.
And she have to get permission to me.
So she's trying to do
I know.
2 meetings at.
She
Yeah.
says to you, "Can I have permission?"
I talked to her before, so know what time our deliberations are going to continue. So I think she's good.
After a determination is made, you have the form to fill out, hand to.
I do.
You do.
You have it?
I-
Okay. I have just the facts, findings, and decisions, but
Okay.
I'll usually type these up after and send it to her as well. So these are mine.
I just know if we whatever the determination is, if it's provided here tonight, that saves you the time and hassle and expense of doing certified mail.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, do you want to, at the end, write that out, or do you want me to? I think I've decided.
I'll write that out. I thought that I brought some, but yeah, I'll write those out.
Okay.
I mean, with all due respect, we can move forward with just the three of us. I mean, I want to respect John's
Yeah, we
time
can.
here.
Let's-
Yeah.
If that's, I mean, we have a quorum, let's just,
Yeah, let's
I mean,
go.
okay. If you're fine with that, John, then,
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, if you would like to, we can wait for.
No. I was lost in the math on the fairways there. That's why I was interrupting. I thought it was the differential was 804, but it depends how you know what you add and subtract here. But getting back to the cost per acre, I guess it's pretty it's a 2-to-1 deal. Okay, I mean the average is in the sixes. I'm at 13.7. So there's, like Mike said, well, the land might be over, but the buildings might be under, okay? And that's why my question's about where do you start with the sum and then you just cut it up afterwards and try and slide the water balloon to make it fit the total or whatever, but I guess I'll never figure that out. And I appreciate your analogy about letting somebody into your house, but you missed the part about letting them see the checkbook. So I understand that, this is like I'm willfully withholding evidence or something. I'm just basing my stuff on the real estate, not on the business. I view the two as separate. Outside of that, I guess I'm gonna have to. You missed it.
I'm so sorry.
It was a very compelling argument.
This is crazy. Okay,
Yeah, you need two of you, right? One to be there and one to be here.
I know.
Okay, so you didn't miss anything, I was just making a comment about other comments, and I don't know that the cost per hole is necessarily as valid. I think the most invalid one is the cost of construction, because clearly, even Mike's is what you paid to build it is nowhere near.
But that's how they do houses. I'm sorry,
This
apologize,
is closing.
apologize.
You're right, they do that. But it shows you what difference between a house and this is, just like an apartment is. Apartment's more of a commodity, there's more subjectivity here. That's my case and the comparables. For the sake of the Stanley Cup, I have to shut
Right.
my mouth.
All right,
Okay,
John.
now what's the procedure here, do I do?
Now Mike goes, and then we close up and just talk amongst ourselves and
So then do I vamoose? and-
no, you
I'm
can,
entitled
but
to stay here, but-
anyone can come in and watch and listen.
Oh.
You are welcome to stay. So Mike, go ahead with your
Sure.
closing
Sure.
discussion.
I think that I've used a reasonable approach to keep uniform and equitable values for the golf courses in Lisbon, but also in other areas of this county and Waukesha and nearby counties. Certainly, there could be a different allocation of between land and buildings values. Ultimately, if they have confidence in the assessment, would certainly want to consider the income and expense. And certainly that's not possible for 2019. But the future, I think the board should keep in mind the equity issue between all three of these golf courses. And if the board was going to make an adjustment, perhaps they would want to consider the other courses as well. So I'm not sure quite how and if they can do that, but if that is done, that would be something, if the board doesn't address that part of it, is I can look at that for 2020. Thank you.
Right, so testimony is
Can I ask by that statement, Mike?
you can talk, ask as many questions as you want after we're done, because we're done.
Okay.
Testimony is closed. If you do want to talk afterwards, but so now it's the board's time to deliberate, and then we'd be looking for a motion. So, discussion amongst ourselves. Anyone want to start?
I'm a realtor by trade, and I do deal with single-family homes. We deal on value. So this is a lot different. I fully admit that. This is a lot different than doing single-family homes and just lot. But this is what we pay this gentleman for, and I just have to say myself that I would go along with what he says. He's got the expertise. I don't have the degrees, and I would stay with his. And I do think we got a lot of acreage over here, and when I look at the pictures, it seems like it's a much better course. And he can be very proud of what he does. And yes, he's probably got some great people over there, but that has nothing to do with the value. So I myself, I leave this one to the expert, and he has said what he thinks.
So I think there's a lot of factors here. I really do. I can understand where some of the concerns come from and the questions, and I understand where the valuation and the need to base information comes from. What I wish is that there was a trusting exchange of information to make a better informed decision on that may change an opinion. And that's why I have had my own experience with having an assessor say, come in or be stuck with my value. And this is not a new assessment year now, and I was kind of looking for the historical data of when it changed and whether it was challenged during that time or what those values were. And there have been some changes based on things that have happened. But what I'm understanding from the expert we have here today is that the income and expense is a way of valuing golf courses because the land is the business in that sense. And I have dealt with other properties where the property is the business, being in commercial real estate. That's not my profession, but I do have some experience in that. And whenever we've looked at valuing that, we have looked at income and expense as part of that. But I've also gotten an appraisal to be able to assess somebody else's statement of the income and expense and expected revenues as compared to the value of the property. And without that information here to see an appraisal that assesses that differently than what the expert we have here today tells us, I'm not questioning anything about the quality of information you've given me, but rather I don't know how to value the absence of information given the available information that we have. So I look at burdens, and I'm a lawyer, so I look at burdens of proof. And here, the burden of proof is on you to convince us that what he has established as the value is wrong. And I understand your concern on the dollar per acre, which is the more traditional value of land that I'm used to outside of the commercial, which does include income and expense traditionally. And I see the disparity, and I want to understand that. But what I understand is I need, or that the assessor needs access to the income and expense to dispel what is assumed based on the best information available, and that it's hard to overcome that without either an independent appraisal telling us that that's wrong or some disparity in the information that was provided. So without that, I'm hard pressed to say that you've met the burden that needs to be met to overcome the assessment that the expert has provided for us. But I would be interested to see such information to explain the disparity and the value of your course and what clearly has to be some great work and upkeep on, and what I'm not a golfer, but I'm assuming is a very wonderful course, given how it's valued as the dollar per hole and the value of your land and what you've done to it as it relates to a business use.
Becky?
Yeah, this is very difficult for me also. I know you brought us two comparables, but they're in different parts of the state. And with a golf course, I think that matters a lot. You do have more acreage. You have almost 100 acres more than Fairways does. You have a larger clubhouse. You have a couple more buildings than they do. And I'm just going to have to go with what the assessor has assessed your property at.
Right. At the end of the day, I agree. I mean, we're looking at uniformity and equitable assessments. Based on that information, I think the assessment is justified. With that being said, could comparable sales and adjustments to those sales indicate a value less than $4 million? I think that's certainly possible. I think a lot of the points made tonight were valid. The sales numbers, the income information could help or hurt John's case, but at the end of the day, the comparable sales, I think, could certainly indicate a value less than $4 million. But there's no support for the 1.7 number, and we can't just pull a number out of the sky. So with that being said, I think when I'm hearing we're all in agreement that tonight, based on information we have, we would be looking at substanding the assessment.
Right, I agree. I think the bog, it's a smaller place. I don't consider that one. I think this one for 2 million, sounds like a very nice, what we know of so far. We don't have all the information, but what we know so far. But it was sold in 2016, and I believe the prices were a lot lower than this, and it was sold under duress. So I think we need to know those figures as well. Obviously, the seller didn't get the right value for it, in my opinion, at this time.
So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that pursuant to section 70.499A Wisconsin statutes, we did make a determination that the assessor's value is correct and sustain the assessment value set at whatever it's set at, $4,808,600. Is that right? No, the assessed value is $4,224,300.
No, I think
What is it?
the $4,245,900.
Whatever it's currently set at.
Okay, all
I
right.
can amend my
For
motion to say
2019.
that.
All right, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 4-0. We'll finish up with a couple of last items. Item 11 is communication of any other business as authorized by law. Hearing none, we'll move on to the last item, discussion and necessary action to approve the 2019 assessment roll as corrected by the assessor. If any corrections were made, you're sworn.
There were 2 late open book adjustments that are part of the assessment roll.
Okay. All right, so if there's no other matters to be discussed, we would be looking for a motion to adjourn, correct, Ben?
It would be to approve the 2019 assessment roll and to adjourn the Board of Review.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2019 assessment roll as corrected.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries 4-0.
And I'll make a motion we adjourn.
I second.
Okay, all those in,
The approval of the assessment roll and the adjournment
does
was the same
adjournment.
motion. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Well, I
We are
was trying to break it in two.
John, you
Can I ask a question?
now everything's off
Yeah.
the record and
Okay,
Yes.
so I can get a copy of that?